I should have stayed on the main highway that night. It was late, the rain was coming down in sheets, and I was exhausted from working a double shift at the diner, but I was impatient. I just wanted to get home, shower, and collapse into bed. That's why I took the shortcut. There's a lonely road outside Mason Ridge called Hollow Creek Lane. It cuts right through the woods and saves nearly half an hour compared to the highway. Most people avoid it because it's unpaved in spots and prone to flooding, but I'd driven it once before in daylight and figured it couldn't be that bad. The rain hammered against my windshield as I slowed to make the turn. My GPS protested with its usual recalculating voice, but I ignored it. I even sent a quick text to my roommate, Jenna, before I lost reception, taking the back road. Be home by 1. The first 10 minutes were uneventful, just wet pavement shining like black glass under my headlights. The woods closed in on either side, thick and gnarled, with rainwater dripping off branches and long rivulets. My wipers scraped back and forth with a rhythmic squeak that only made the silence heavier. Then I saw the sign. It was nailed to a tree on the shoulder, handmade, wood warped from years of weather exposure. The paint was faded but still legible. Keep out in jagged, uneven letters. I slowed and muttered to myself. Weird. It didn't look official, just something some backwoods hermit would throw together to keep trespassers away. I drove on, feeling that small shiver you get when something just feels off, but not enough to turn back. A mile or so later, my high beams caught movement up ahead, a figure standing on the edge of the road. He was tall and thin, wearing a long gray coat that hung heavy with rain. He wasn't waving or signaling for help. He just stood there. His head slowly turned toward me as I approached, but he didn't move otherwise. No thumb out for a ride, no sign of distress, just eyes catching the light like an animal's, reflecting pale and cold. Every instinct I had screamed, "Don't stop." I eased into the opposite lane, giving him space, and kept my foot steady on the gas. My heart was hammering as I passed, pretending not to look at him directly, but I did glance in the rearview mirror, just for a second. He was still there, still watching. The rain seemed to intensify after that, or maybe I just noticed it more. The road narrowed, dipping lower into the trees, and my cell service cut out entirely. I gripped the wheel tighter and kept telling myself it was fine, just some drifter waiting for someone braver than me to offer a ride. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement in the woods to my left. At first, I thought it was an animal, a deer, or maybe a coyote. But it was moving with me, keeping pace as I drove 30, then 40 miles an hour. Every time I sped up, the shape in the trees moved faster. The rain blurred my side window, making it hard to focus, but I caught glimpses through breaks in the branches, long limbs, far too long for a person, and something pale glinting in the darkness like wet skin. I pressed harder on the gas. Okay. Nope, nope, nope. I muttered, my voice shaking. A sharp crack echoed from the woods, like a branch snapping under something heavy, followed by a splash of mud. It was close, and whatever it was fast. Then came the sound I'll never forget. It wasn't footsteps, not really. It was heavier, stranger, like someone slapping wet towels against the ground, rapidly, in perfect rhythm with my tires. I risked a glance through the passenger window and saw it again, pale arms, bending wrong, fingers digging into the earth as it ran on all fours beside me. I jerked my head forward and stomped on the accelerator, my car fishtailing briefly before gripping the slick road. The thing didn't fall back at first. It kept up for what felt like forever, those unnatural limbs carrying it effortlessly through the trees, until the woods grew too thick and it finally disappeared. I was shaking so hard I could barely keep the wheel straight. The next road sign loomed out of the mist, illuminated by my high beams, but something about it made me slam on the brakes so hard my seatbelt locked. The sign had been tampered with. Someone had rotated it upside down on the post. Backward letters stared at me in dripping rainwater. Deep Hollow gives 2 miles. I've lived near Mason Ridge my entire life. I'd never heard of Deep Hollow. The woods around me seemed to press closer, like they were listening. The rain softened for a moment, eerily quiet, except for my engine ticking as it idled and the pounding of my own heartbeat. Then I heard it. Footsteps behind my car. Slow, deliberate, splashing through puddles in the dark. My breath caught. I gripped the steering wheel so tight it hurt. I didn't look back. I didn't want to know if it was the man or that thing or something else entirely. Instead, I slammed my foot on the gas and shot forward, tires spitting water behind me as I sped blindly into the night, deeper into a road I was already regretting. The rain didn't let up, but my speed did. I kept my foot heavy on the accelerator until my knuckles whitened on the wheel. The road twisted and narrowed, and in my panic, I took a sharp curve too fast. The back tires slid, kicking up mud as the car fishtailed before catching grip again. Get it together. Just get out of here, I whispered to myself, voice shaking. But the shortcut wasn't playing nice. The road degraded from patchy asphalt to gravel, then to something closer to dirt mixed with water. It felt like driving on wet clay, the tires slipping in shallow grooves carved by years of runoff. My headlights cut through curtains of rain, and for a while, all I could see were trees, dripping wet and impossibly tall, pressing in from either side. That's when the dashboard chimed. Check engine. No. A plume of steam hissed up from the hood, curling across the windshield. The temperature gauge was climbing. I pulled over, pounding so loud it drowned out the rain for a second. The engine sputtered, coughed, and then died completely. I sat there in the sudden quiet, only the ping of cooling metal and the drum of rain on the roof filling the void. My hands were trembling so badly I dropped my phone the first time I reached for it. No service. I laughed nervously, a sharp, humorless sound, and rested my forehead against the wheel. Okay, it's fine. You're fine. You just wait it out, and someone will drive by eventually. Except deep down, I knew no one would. No one takes Hollow Creek Lane at midnight in a storm. That was the whole reason I had. Then came the sound again, wet footsteps. Squishy, deliberate, moving just beyond the glow of the headlights. I froze, straining to listen. It wasn't rain runoff or the creak of branches. It was footsteps slow, steady, getting closer. I turned the headlights on full and grabbed the flashlight from my glove box with shaking hands. I peered through the glass, but all I saw were tree trunks, thick underbrush, and mist curling like breath in the cold. Another step, closer. Something shifted just inside the tree line, a pale figure sliding behind one of the larger trunks. Nope, I muttered, fumbling for the door lock, slamming it down. I sat there, clutching the flashlight like a weapon, every muscle tight enough to snap. The footsteps stopped. For a long moment, the only sound was the rain. Then something tapped on the passenger window. Once, twice, 3 times. Each tap was slow, deliberate, and directly at eye level. I screamed and shined the flashlight at the window, but there was nothing there. Just rivulets of rain racing down the glass. That was it for me. I couldn't stay in the car, not when something was outside and knew I was in there. Against every instinct screaming at me not to, I opened the driver's door and stepped out into the storm, gripping the flashlight so hard my knuckles hurt. The cold hit me instantly, soaking through my jacket in seconds. I popped the hood, trying to focus on the car, anything but that oppressive feeling of being watched. Steam billowed up as I propped it open, hissing angrily from somewhere deep in the engine block. Even if I'd known what I was doing, I wouldn't have been able to fix it. The belt was shredded, dangling like wet spaghetti. A noise behind me snapped my head around. Leaves rustled, branches cracked, and there, 10 feet away, stood the same man I'd seen earlier on the road. His gray coat hung heavier now, plastered to his thin frame, and his face was wrong. It sagged somehow, like wet clay slaying off bone, eyes sunken deep and dark. He tilted his head slowly, bird-like, studying me. I bolted. I don't even remember deciding to run, it just happened. My boots slipped in the mud as I sprinted away from the car and into the trees. The flashlight beam jerked wildly, bouncing off trunks and brambles as I stumbled deeper into the woods. Branches whipped against my face. Something snagged my sleeve and tore it open, but I didn't stop. I could hear him behind me now, not running, but walking, those same deliberate, wet footsteps following unhurriedly, as if he knew I couldn't escape. "Help! Somebody help!" I screamed into the night. My voice felt swallowed by the rain and trees. Then I saw it, a structure. It looked like an old hunting shack or tool shed, barely standing, its wood gray and rotting. The door hung crooked on rusted hinges, but it was shelter, and right now, that was enough. I darted inside and slammed the door, bracing it with my shoulder. The air inside was thick with mildew and something else coppery metallic. The flashlight beam trembled across the walls, illuminating symbols carved deep into the wood. Circles, triangles, long vertical lines intersected with jagged scratches. And everywhere, layered on top of everything, the same message repeated over and over. "You shouldn't have come." My stomach dropped. Behind me, a single knock rattled the door. Just one, slow, heavy, and intentional. I backed away, tripping over something soft. I aimed the light down and screamed. It was a shoe. A woman's shoe, small and mud-stained, still attached to part of a leg. Before I could even process it, the knocking started again, faster now, harder. The whole door shuddered. Then it stopped. The silence was worse than the knocking. Slowly, I turned toward the tiny window near the roofline. Something pale was peeking through, pressed against the glass. A face, the man's face, but now the jaw was unhinged, dangling open far too wide, teeth jagged and glistening. His eyes locked on mine as a sound escaped him, low and guttural, almost a growl, but with words buried in it. "Run." The window shattered as he lunged. I didn't think. I didn't breathe. The second that pale face came through the window, I bolted out the back of the shack, not even caring where I was going. My flashlight bounced violently in my grip, casting erratic beams across roots and fallen branches as I sprinted into the endless black. The forest changed as I ran. It took me a few seconds to notice, but the trees, they weren't the same as before. The trunks were wider, twisted unnaturally, curling like melted candles. The ground dipped and rose in impossible ways, forcing me to stumble every few feet. It felt like running through a painting where the perspective was all wrong. I kept hearing him behind me. Slow, steady steps, sometimes to the left, sometimes impossibly close to my right, even though I hadn't heard him pass me. Every time I turned my flashlight toward the sound, there was nothing but branches and mist. A whisper threaded through the rain. "You shouldn't have come." It wasn't just one voice. It was dozens, layered and echoing from every direction. I screamed and pushed harder, lungs burning, until I burst into a clearing. The first thing I noticed was the smell thick and cloying like copper and rot. Then my eyes adjusted to the scene in front of me, and I wished I hadn't. A stone circle sat in the center, carved with those same strange symbols I'd seen in the shack. Around it, dozens of objects were arranged in deliberate patterns, personal items. Wallets, purses, shoes, even a child's backpack with one strap torn off. Each was smeared with something dark, glistening under the flashlight beam. And then I saw the bodies. At least 4 of them, propped upright against stakes, driven deep into the earth, faces slack and gray from decay. Their eyes were gone, sockets stuffed with some kind of black moss or root-like growths. I stumbled back, gagging, when something cold brushed against my shoulder. I spun around and froze. He was there, the man in the gray coat, standing barely 2 feet away. Only now I could see him clearly, and he wasn't a man at all. His limbs were too long, joints bending in ways they shouldn't, like a spider mimicking a human stance. His face sagged as before, but now it moved, skin sliding unnaturally, revealing something beneath it, a second face, stretched tight and screaming silently. He tilted his head in that unnatural bird-like way, and his jaw unhinged further than before, cracking audibly as it opened wide enough to swallow my head whole. And then he split. His torso peeled open down the center like wet fabric, revealing nothing inside but endless blackness that seemed to suck in the light from my flashlight. His arms elongated, fingers stretching until they dragged against the ground like blades. "Run," he gurgled again, but it wasn't a warning, it was mockery. I turned and bolted into the stone circle itself, desperate for any kind of barrier between me and that thing. The moment my foot crossed into the circle, everything changed. The rain stopped, the wind died, the forest went still. I stopped, panting, spinning in place. The clearing was gone. The trees had shifted again, forming a perfect wall around me, no visible exit. My flashlight flickered once, twice, then died completely. That's when I heard them, the whispers. They weren't coming from him this time. They were coming from below. I shined the dim emergency glow from my phone toward the ground. The soil inside the circle was carved with deep runes, glowing faintly red, like embers buried just beneath the surface. And then a hand burst up through the earth, grabbing my ankle. I screamed and kicked, breaking free as more hands clawed their way up, dozens of them, all gray and skeletal, nails scraping against my boots. Their arms were thin, brittle-looking, but impossibly strong, and one by one, bodies began to rise. They weren't like the ones on the stakes. These were worse. Skin stretched taut over bone, eyeless sockets weeping black fluid, jaws clicking open and shut like insects. They moved in jerks and twitches, surrounding me in a half circle, their heads tilting in perfect unison. Behind them, the gray-coated figure stepped into the circle, unhindered by whatever invisible barrier had stopped everything else. His voice came out layered and human. "You shouldn't have come, but now you can't leave." The ground collapsed beneath me. It felt like falling into water, but thicker, like sinking into tar. I couldn't breathe, couldn't scream, as darkness swallowed me whole. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying in the same stone circle, but it wasn't night anymore. The sky was blood red, clouds swirling like ink dropped into water. The trees were black silhouettes, writhing subtly as though alive. And the clearing was full not of bodies this time, but people, all standing silently in a circle around me. Their faces were covered with crude masks made of bark and bone. Each held something: sharp knives, axes, rusty farming tools, and each one swayed gently in unison, whispering something low and guttural. The gray-coated figure stepped forward, but now he was taller, easily 10 feet, his head brushing the treetops. He bent down, so close his face was inches from mine, and whispered one last time, "Welcome to Deep Hollow." I tried to run, but the masked figure surged forward as one. Something heavy cracked against the back of my skull, and the world went black. When I woke up, I was on my back. Rough rope cut into my wrists and ankles, pinning me to a flat stone slab slick with something warm. For a moment, I thought it was rain, but the smell hit me iron. I turned my head and immediately regretted it. The masked people were still there, circling slowly, whispering that same guttural chant. Only now their masks were gone, and so were their faces. Where skin should have been, there was only raw muscle, glistening and pulsing like something alive underneath. And their eyes, or where eyes should have been, were pits, deep and black, as if someone had gouged them out and left nothing behind but shadow. The air was thick, humid, and heavy with something that wasn't just rot, it was wrong. Like an ozone tang after lightning, but mixed with the sickly sweet undertone that made me gag. I tried to scream, but the rope across my chest pinned me so tight that all I managed was a hoarse wheeze. Above me, the sky churned. The clouds spun faster than they should have, like time-lapse footage. And deep in the center, something moved behind them, something enormous, shifting slowly, blocking out patches of that blood-red sky. The stone beneath me vibrated. One of the faceless figures stepped forward, carrying a bowl carved from black stone. Inside was a thick, tar-like liquid that smelled like decay and burned hair. They dipped their fingers in and traced symbols across my forehead, lips, and sternum, the same symbols I'd seen carved into the shack and the circle itself. My body went numb almost instantly. I could feel my heart hammering, but my arms and legs refused to move, as if the blood pumping through me had been replaced with ice water. Then he arrived. The gray-coated figure, or what had been pretending to be one, loomed over the clearing. He wasn't human now, not even close. His body had elongated into something insectal, with limbs that bent wrong and a torso that thinned into nothingness before widening again, like the hourglass of a spider. That false, sagging human face peeled away completely, revealing what I can only describe as a hole shaped like a head, a void rimmed with teeth that weren't teeth so much as slivers of something crystalline, reflecting colors I shouldn't have been able to see. When he spoke, it was in layers of voices, not just human, but animalistic, insectoid, even mechanical. This world grows fat with trespassers. We call what wanders too close. I felt something brush against my mind, an image, unbidden and wrong. That shortcut didn't lead through the woods. It led into them. Not Earth's woods, not the hollow creek lane I'd known, but an overlay, a trap woven into reality itself. People like me didn't just get lost here, they were lured. And whatever this thing was, it wasn't alone. The sky tore open. At first, it looked like lightning, a jagged scar of white splitting the clouds, but then it widened, folding back like peeling skin. Behind it was darkness, deeper than night, a void that somehow had depth, stretching infinitely in all directions. Things moved in it, but my mind refused to process them, angles that shouldn't exist, limbs that bent like Mobius strips, colors that tasted like metal. One of the masked, not masked people leaned close and whispered in my ear. Their breath was freezing cold, and their words were perfectly clear despite the chant around us. Do not look at it. Do not see it. But I already had. My vision blurred, my ears rang, and for one terrifying moment, I wasn't on the stone anymore. I was falling, weightless, into that void, hurtling past shapes so massive they dwarfed mountains. One of them turned, or maybe just focused on me, and I felt its attention like a physical blow, crushing, endless, hungry. I slammed back into my body with a choking gasp, coughing up blood. The chant rose to a fever pitch. The faceless cultists raised their arms as the gray-coated thing approached the stone slab, its gaping void face lowering until it was inches from mine. I could see inside it now, not darkness, but a swirling cosmos, stars spinning violently as if caught in a whirlpool. Planets shattered and collapsed inward, whole galaxies torn like paper. Whatever this thing was, it had an entire universe trapped within itself. And then it spoke again. Offer your soul and be remade, or be unmade entirely. The ropes around me burned, searing my skin, but I couldn't move. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would explode. And somewhere, in the back of my mind, I heard another voice, my own voice, but distorted, echoing, "You shouldn't have come." The world bent inward. The trees leaned until their tops touched, forming a dome. The cultists' bodies snapped backward at impossible angles, spines breaking but faces still fixed toward me. Their whispers merged into one sustained tone, a sound that rattled my teeth and made my vision strobe black and white, and then silence. Everything stopped. The creature froze mid-step. The cultists were statues. The clouds above stopped spinning, and from behind me, a hand touched my shoulder. I couldn't turn to see who it was, but a voice human, distinctly human, whispered into my ear, "Run when you wake up." The world collapsed inward again, darkness swallowing everything whole. I woke up in my car. The rain was gone. The road was dry. My dashboard clock read 3:33 a.m. My engine started on the first try, smooth and quiet like nothing had ever happened. But when I looked down at my hands, there were still faint red symbols on my skin, glowing dimly before fading completely. In my passenger seat sat a single object, a mask made of bark and bone. I drove home in silence, shaking the whole way. I don't know how I got out, or who saved me, or if I ever really left. Because sometimes, late at night, I hear a voice outside my window. "You shouldn't have come." I didn't go to work for 3 days. Not because I was sick, but because I couldn't make myself leave the house. Every time I touched my car keys, my hands trembled so hard I nearly dropped them. I even considered selling the car because part of me believed that if I sat inside it again, I'd somehow end up back on Hollow Creek Lane, but I couldn't just sit here, stewing in my own fear. Eventually, I opened my laptop and started searching. The first hit was a local forum post from 2017. Someone had asked why GPS sometimes routed them through Hollow Creek Lane even when there was a faster highway option. The responses were unsettling. Avoid that road. It's not worth it. My uncle crashed there and swears something stepped out in front of him that wasn't human. Cops don't patrol there anymore. They say it's unsafe because of sinkholes, but that's not the real reason. Don't drive there alone. If you do, don't stop for anything, ever. I thought about the detour sign I'd seen that night, bright, reflective, impossible to ignore. But when I opened Google Maps again, Hollow Creek Lane didn't even exist. Just unbroken forest. There were 3 cases. 1999, a college student named Brianna Cole vanished driving home for Thanksgiving. Her car was found parked neatly on a dirt road shoulder. No keys, no footprints leading away. 2008, a married couple, Howard and Denise Marks, were last seen leaving a family gathering. Dashcam footage leaked briefly showed a figure standing in the road before cutting to static. 2021, a man named Elijah Redding. The article said only, authorities believe he became lost after following a navigation error. His vehicle was recovered but showed no signs of forced entry. All 3? Hollow Creek Lane. My stomach nodded. I'd taken a photo of the mask from my passenger seat before throwing it into the trunk that night. I ran it through an image search. Only one match came up, an archived anthropology paper from 1965 about pre-colonial Appalachian cult practices. The image was nearly identical, a crude mask, bark fused with animal bone. The caption read, "Used by forest shamans to open the hollow, where flesh meets the eternal." The paper ended with one line burned into my brain. When the hollow is open, the watcher steps through. Those taken are not lost, but rearranged. I slammed the laptop shut. That night, I didn't sleep. At first, I thought the faint hiss I heard was just wind, but my windows were shut tight. The whispering came from outside, near the trees. I grabbed my flashlight and crept to the back window. Something was standing at the tree line. At first, it seemed like a person, but it was too tall, its joints bent at unnatural angles, its limbs too long. Its head was tilted sharply to one side, like it didn't understand how necks were supposed to work, and it was wearing the mask, the one I had locked in my trunk. At 3:33 a.m., same time I woke up in my car that night, there was a knock at my door. 3 times, slow, deliberate. I froze in the hallway, gripping a fireplace poker. The knock came again, louder, then a voice. My voice. Let me in. My knees buckled. My throat seized. The doorknob rattled violently, then stopped. For several minutes, there was silence. Then faint, deliberate footsteps moved away, circling toward the back of the house. I sat on the floor, clutching that fireplace poker, watching the live feed from my door camera on my phone. At exactly 3:33, the feed glitched for 1 second. For 2 frames, I was standing outside, staring into the camera. My eyes were solid black. My jaw hung open and possibly wide, like it had been unhinged. When the image corrected itself, the porch was empty. The next morning, I checked my trunk. The mask was gone. There isn't one. I still don't know what I stumbled into. I don't know if Hollow Creek Lane is some kind of lure, or if it waits for people like me, people willing to take shortcuts, ignore their gut, push through places they shouldn't. But I know one thing for sure, it's not over. Because every night since, at 3:33 am, I hear the knock again. Same rhythm, same voice. And last night, when I checked the security feed, something new appeared. Not at the door, inside the house. A tall, bent figure in the hallway, wearing the mask.